Week 9 of Big Brother 27 has come and gone, and this week sucked. Point blank period, this was a terrible week of Big Brother. But how did it all break down? Well, that's why I'm here. In this video, I'm going to be recapping the events of Week 9 of Big Brother 27 and giving my updated power rankings. So with all of that preamble out of the way, it is the one and only RJ21 here, and let's get into the Big Brother 27 Week 9 recap and power rankings. Week 9 starts off with the White Locust Resort, a Big Brother getaway of sorts. It was branded as a luxury spa that was promising the house guests a buffet, lays, and a peace of mind to where they didn't have to pray. Or at least that's what they wanted them to think, as the mastermind eventually came onto the screen and told the house guests that that very same night, one of these house guests was going to be evicted and become the first member of the jury, the same night as Mickey's eviction. And this whole twist was going to be oversaw by the White Locust Resort's concierge in Tyler, who was on Big Brother 20 and Big Brother 22 All-Stars. And it was just really nice to see him return. I know that he struggled a lot on Big Brother All-Stars with his mental health, and he wanted to distance himself from the show as much as possible after that season. And so it's really nice to see him come back and heal and at least have some sort of cameo on this season. The first competition of the night is not an HOH competition, but rather an immunity competition, to where the house guest that wins this competition is going to be able to avoid all of the chaos of the night. Basically, this competition is called Escape the White Locust, and it is essentially the sliding competition that we had seen in seasons such as Big Brother 22 and the Week 3 HOH that Tyler actually won. Basically, these houses have to slide these totems and land them in a specific green zone. They have to slide their 3 totems, land them, and hit their buzzer. Whichever house guest gets all 3 of their totems in the green zone and hits their buzzer in the fastest time will earn immunity and will not only have safety from this White Locust Twist, but they will have a massive influence on how the events of the night will play out. Ultimately, there were some house guests who were close to winning it, such as Lauren and Keanu, but by the end of it, Ava comes out on top and wins immunity and now has a lot of influence over what is going to happen. It is then revealed that the call-out chain from Big Brother Reindeer Games is making its official return, meaning that tonight, the house guest who is evicted from the White Locust Resort is not going home via an eviction vote, but rather by a competition, meaning that Ava has a lot of influence over what is going to happen. Essentially, Ava is going to select one house guest to compete in the maze, and that house guest will have 6 minutes and 30 seconds to complete the maze. If the house guest is successful, they survive, and they get the power to select the next house guest to compete. However, the next house guest to compete has 1 minute less, meaning that as the competition goes on, the later you are into the chains that you are selected, the less time you will have to complete the maze. If you fail to complete the maze in the allotted amount of time, you are eliminated from the game and will become the first member of the jury. After the format of the twist is revealed, Rachel goes on the offensive because she wants to go first, as she wants to have the most amount of time possible to complete the maze. And so Rachel grabs Ava by the arm and drags her into the storage room. And by the way Ava described it, I would have imagined that Rachel yanked her arm off and then picked Ava up and then broke her over her knee, but no, it was literally just Rachel holding Ava's arm and then walking with her and leading her into the storage room, because Rachel wanted to have a one-on-one private conversation with Ava and be the first person to get to Ava's ear about what she should do that night. But this action rubs Ava the wrong way, as she does not like getting bossed around like that, which should be pretty obvious as you have her fight with Keanu as evidence. But for some reason, Rachel just doesn't remember this, and this is going to come back to bite her in the butt hard. Ava is now trying to have conversations with everybody, and for some reason, even though Ava clearly has allies she wants to protect, Ava is taking volunteers? Like, what? We are now in the jury phase of the game, and you want to compete based on fairness? It just doesn't make sense, because Ava just doesn't want to make herself a target with this move. So despite people like Keanu and Rachel volunteering to go, Ava ends up choosing Vince to compete first, because she believes that that is going to get the least amount of blood on her hands, since Vince is allied with practically everybody in the house. It's a really dumb move in my opinion, but it's the move that she ends up making. Vince then competes in the maze, and with relative ease, he is able to complete the maze and survives. But now, Vince has to make a decision on who to save. Everybody in the house is assuming that Vince is going to pick Morgan to compete, considering that they're both very close, really close, oddly close, and because of that, everybody's just assuming Vince is going to pick Morgan to compete. However, Vince doesn't necessarily want to do that, as Vince has 2 number 1s in this game, Morgan and Lauren. And Vince knows that if he chooses Morgan, it's not guaranteed that Morgan is going to be able to save Lauren and thus put Lauren in danger. And Vince doesn't want that. So Vince essentially alludes to the fact that he's not going to pick Morgan, but rather pick Lauren under the guise that Lauren has to save Morgan if Lauren is able to complete the maze. And this obviously upsets Morgan to an extreme because Morgan is supposed to be Vince's ride or die, and they're supposed to be undyingly loyal to one another. So for Vince to choose Lauren over Morgan makes Morgan really upset. And it honestly makes Vince a bit hesitant to choose Lauren because now there's no guarantee that Lauren is actually going to choose Morgan. But by the end of it, Vince ends up choosing Lauren to compete in the maze next. Lauren then competes in the maze and completes it with relative ease, but now Lauren has a decision to make. Lauren can choose to either stick loyal to her word to Vince and choose Morgan to compete next, or Lauren can compete selfishly and choose Kelley to compete next, considering the fact that Kelley is a much closer ally to Lauren than Morgan is. And even though Lauren really wants to save Kelley, Lauren ends up staying loyal to Vince and chooses Morgan to compete next. Morgan then competes in the maze, and she also clears it with pretty relative ease, which means that Morgan is now in a position of power to where she can keep both herself and the rest of the judges safe and essentially decide who goes home next. So Morgan makes what she believes is the obvious play and chooses Rachel to compete with 3 minutes and 30 seconds left. We then see Rachel competing in the maze, and Rachel just doesn't understand how the puzzle works. She is stuck in this beginning section for basically her entire time, and before you know it, Rachel runs out of time and she fails to complete the maze and officially loses the competition, meaning that she's gone. She's eliminated, even though she was never nominated and was never put up on the block and never received an eviction vote. Rachel is gone. She's out of the house and she is officially the 9th house guest to be evicted from the Big Brother house. Even though she wasn't evicted, she was technically eliminated.
The house guest should absolutely be worried about the White Locust.
Everybody is absolutely stunned that Rachel went home. Nobody was ever anticipating an outcome in which Rachel was the one going home in this twist. But somehow Rachel is the one that is gone. And now everything in this game is switching up. And it's becoming even more apparent in the fact that this whole maze competition was not only a hit the road competition, but it was also the HOH competition, as whoever completed the maze in the shortest amount of time would become the new head of household, essentially meaning that not everybody would technically have the chance to compete for HOH. And because only 3 people competed in the maze, one of Lauren, Morgan, or Vince was going to become the new head of household. And by the end of it, Lauren comes out on top and becomes the new head of household, earning her second HOH of the season. We then see Vince and Morgan having a conversation where Morgan is very upset with Vince. Rightfully so, considering that they're supposed to be ride or dies and have a final 2, yet Vince chose Lauren over Morgan. And Vince is trying to convince Morgan that I would never choose Lauren over you. I'm trying to protect you. When it's like you literally just did choose Lauren over Morgan. Like, it doesn't make sense, but it's just another attempt of Vince trying to play victim and trying to garner sympathy instead of actually just taking accountability for his actions. Lauren and Vince then have a conversation where Vince is ecstatic that Lauren is the HOH. Initially, he was a bit hesitant about it, considering the fact that he did essentially ruin his very good relationship with Morgan. But now that Lauren is HOH, it doesn't really matter all that much. And Lauren is obviously going to stick to her guns and go after people that she isn't necessarily closely aligned with. So at the nomination ceremony, Lauren chooses to nominate Morgan, Will, and Ashley, with Morgan as the target. After the nomination ceremony, Keanu starts hearing some rumors about how he is a potential option to go up as a backdoor. But Keanu doesn't believe this because there's no way that Lauren would do that, considering the fact that Keanu kept Lauren safe even though Rachel was pitching Lauren as the replacement nominee. So in Keanu's mind, he believes that Lauren owes him one and that Lauren would never put him up on the block. But we come to find out soon that that's really not the case. We then pick players for the Power Veto competition where the HOH in Lauren, the 3 nominees in Ashley, Morgan, and Will, and Vince and Ava, who are selected by random draw, are all going to compete. And this week is the iconic BB Comics comp. And I love this comp because I always love seeing how everybody gets their superhero personifications. Except for the fact that this year these comics were just really bad. Like, just really bad. Like, they felt like they lacked so much like creativity and they just felt so bland. Like, it really felt like Big Brother 25 and Big Brother 24 levels of just laziness. Obviously, I'm not going to fault the artists for this, considering that they did an amazing job, but there were so many fun and creative jabs that they could have taken at people like Keanu or Vince, but nope, they just decided to use their costume punishments as their superhero comics, which is so boring and so lame. And like Catherine's comic is just her nose ring that not a lot of people even knew about in the house. Like all of these comics were just so like baseline, standard, boring, uncreative, and it just isn't recapturing the magic of Big Brother comics that I love. And I hope that it eventually returns to its former glory, but with these comics, it's definitely not doing that. But this competition, it's basically like any other BB Comics competition. The HouseGuests have to zip across a zip line and look inside of a room to see the panel of comics. They then have to recreate that panel of comics correctly, both in terms of the order of the comics and which ones are correct and incorrect, as there are some fake duplicate comics that are meant to throw them off. Whichever HouseGuest can get the correct panel of comic books by the end of it in the fastest time will earn the power of veto. Ultimately, the competition comes down to Ashley, Lauren, and Morgan, with Morgan coming out on top and winning the golden power of veto, winning the power of veto for the second time in a row. With Morgan winning the power of veto, it's becoming more and more clear to Keanu that he is in some serious danger of going up as the replacement nominees, as these rumors about him going up are now starting to turn into just plain flat out facts. And Keanu is trying to do whatever it takes to make sure that he isn't the replacement nominee. So he goes up to Vince and asks Vince to essentially offer himself up as the replacement nominee. But Vince obviously isn't going to do that because he's not stupid. So Vince is obviously shutting down that plan. But then Keanu has a conversation with Lauren where Keanu's just flat out pitching Vince for going up on the block as the replacement nominee, saying that Vince is untrustworthy and Vince hasn't done anything for Lauren. But Lauren isn't stupid either, and she's obviously not going to put up her number one ally. So at the veto ceremony, Morgan obviously chooses to use the power veto to save herself, and Lauren very meekly chooses to nominate Keanu as the replacement nominee, with Ashley, Keanu, and Will being the final nominees going into the blockbuster. We then see more relationship drama between Morgan and Vince, as Morgan is essentially crashing out on the fact that Vince is prioritizing Lauren over Morgan. Vince and Lauren are spending a lot of time together, especially in comparison to the time that Vince and Morgan are spending together. And this is making Morgan really upset because they're supposed to be final twos and they're supposed to be close, and Vince is essentially just throwing Morgan to the side and treating her like a side piece in comparison to Lauren. And Morgan hates that fact because she wants Vince all to herself for whatever reasons, whether it's platonic or romantic. I genuinely can't tell. Their relationship is so weird, but that's not really my area to speak on. We then see a very interesting game conversation between Ashley and Keanu. Ashley knows that she's going to stay against Keanu, but against Will, the votes are kind of up in the air, and Ashley knows that Keanu is the pivotal swing vote needed in order for her to stay this week. So Ashley pictures herself as being much more useful to Keanu's game in comparison to Will. And Keanu picks up on this and says that he wants to spite Lauren and make sure that Lauren's HOH is as unsuccessful as possible. Because if Lauren has a second HOH where she isn't able to get out her initial target and get out somebody random, in this case Will, then this HOH would be a complete failure, and that's exactly what Keanu wants. So Keanu agrees that if he wins the blockbuster and the final nominees are Ashley and Will, he is going to vote to evict Will over Ashley. We then get to the BB blockbuster, which this week is called Key to Safety, and it is essentially the rope maze puzzle that we've seen on prior seasons, such as the AI arena that Rubina won on Big Brother 26, or the double eviction veto that Michael lost on Big Brother 24. Basically, the HouseGuests have to untangle themselves from this rope jungle maze and get enough slack to where they can put their key in the keyhole. Whichever HouseGuest is able to do this will win the blockbuster and earn their safety. And this competition wasn't even close. I mean, Ashley was so clumsy, she was tripping over nothing, and Will was competing in this competition injured because of BB Comics. So by the end of it, it was pretty clear that pretty easy that Keanu won the BB blockbuster and earned his safety, making Ashley and Will the final nominees. There is a bit of suspense in this vote considering the fact that we don't necessarily know if Ashley's campaign 100% worked or not yet. Will is by far and away the most lovable and likable guy in the house, and everybody loves Will. So it would be shocking if Will were to be the one to go home. But by the end of it, by an eviction vote of 3-2, Will is the 10th HouseGuest to be evicted from the Big Brother house and becomes the second member of the jury. Now it's time to get into the power rankings. At number 9, the first house gets evicted this week, we have Rachel. And I'm going to get a little personal saying this. I started watching Big Brother in Big Brother 20, which isn't that long in comparison to the lifespan of the show. But in terms of my lifetime, it's a pretty long time. And throughout my entire time watching this show, Rachel's eviction was the first eviction that I genuinely cried at. Like, for Rachel to go home in this manner is just so disrespectful to her and her legacy and who she is as a player and an icon of the game. Rachel didn't deserve this. Yes, Rachel played a flawed game and it was nowhere near perfect, but it was far and away the best game that Rachel has played to date. She was never nominated. She never received an eviction vote, yet she is still the first member of the jury. Her worst fear and her worst nightmare. She didn't deserve this. This twist is so bad. It fundamentally destroys what Big Brother is as a social strategy game. And Rachel was playing that social strategy game to a T. Yes, it wasn't perfect, but she was playing it to the best of her abilities. That's why she was never nominated throughout the entire season, despite being the biggest threat in the entire house. And so for Rachel to be the first juror and go out in such a disrespectful way, it genuinely took me out of the season. It was so emotional for me, for this icon, this legend of the game to go out in this way. It's horrible. It's horrible, and this is not what Big Brother is. But in terms of Rachel's game, I've already expressed it enough how I feel. It's her best game to date. She didn't get nominated the entire season. Was she going to win? We're never going to know because we're just not going to see how the season plays out without this god-awful twist. But ultimately, Rachel lost the wheel and lost the maze, and she ends up here at number 9.
I'm really disappointed in myself. Big Brother's meant so much to me. I'm a legend. Kind of feel like I let everyone down.
At number 8, the second house gets evicted this week, we have Will. And Will was twist screwed, point blank period. Yes, Will didn't directly go home because of the White Locust Resort, but losing Rachel through that twist completely dismantled his entire power structure, and he had nothing to do with that downfall. He was genuinely playing probably the best social game in the entire house. Everybody loved him. He was not a target to anybody, and there was no reason for anybody to target him at this point. Yet Will goes out in this position because of how likable of a guy he is and how big of a social threat he is. But that scenario wouldn't come up this early on into the game if it weren't for this twist. If Rachel doesn't go home and we just have, like, let's say a normal double eviction, sure, Will may go up on the block, but he probably isn't as targeted as early as right now at the final 8. It's just so frustrating because Will was far and away playing what I believe to be the best game of the season. It was the cleanest. Everybody loved him, and there was no reason for anybody to be actively going after him. Will was essentially collateral damage. Even though Will didn't necessarily have the best week this week, and even though he went up as the pawn, people started finally clocking his game about how lovable and likable of a guy he is. And if he were to sit in those final 2 chairs, he would easily win this game. So for everybody else, obviously, I do think it was the right move for them to take Will out. But for Will himself, he was screwed. He was far and away in the best position in the house. I put him at number 1 in the past 2 weeks of these power rankings because of how well Will was doing. And he was in the top 2 for the past 4 weeks. Like, Will was playing such a good game, and for him to get screwed over by this twist, it's so frustrating. But ultimately, he does end up getting evicted, which is why he ends up here at number 8.
She's like one of my daughters in this game, but I wouldn't let one of my real daughters beat me in this game. We talking about $750,000? Oh, hell nah, that ain't happening.
Now it's time to talk about the house guests that are actually still in the game. At number 7, the house guest I believe to be in the worst position in the house is Keanu. And Keanu is still the biggest target in the house. If he didn't win the blockbuster, he was going home unanimously. Even though he made a final 2 deal with Ashley, Keanu was going to go home unanimously because of how big of a threat he is. With the game of Big Brother essentially becoming a lot more competition-based rather than social-based, winning these competitions is everything. And Keanu is far and away the best competitor of the season. Every time Keanu has gone up on the block, he has won some sort of competition to save himself. He won 3 vetoes and 2 blockbusters, which is genuinely insane. Like, Keanu is obviously a really bad player, but yet the fact that he has never faced eviction, he has never faced the vote come eviction night, is genuinely insane. but I don't know if these competitions are going to be able to save him forever. He is far and away the biggest threat in the house because of how competitive he is. Everybody knows how good he is at these competitions, and everybody is now incentivized to go after him. Even though he has his final two with Ashley, and he has been working with Kelley this entire game, both of them are targeting Keanu far and away. Maybe Ashley isn't targeting Keanu as directly, but if Ashley were to send Keanu home, it wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing in the world for Ashley. Whereas with Kelley, it would be horrible if Keanu went home. Yet Kelley is directly going after Keanu, expressing sentiments about how if she were to win HOH, Keanu would obviously be a likely target, as she's throwing him under the bus numerous times. So genuinely at this point, Keanu has nobody, even though he thinks he has people, which is so crazy considering how just bad of a player he is. He's so delusional into thinking he hasn't something when he has nothing. And it's just like, why, Keanu? I have no idea how he made it to top 7, but obviously this competitive format benefits him. But in terms of his position, he needs to win. But he's obviously capable of doing that, but it's still not a great position to be in, which is why I have him here at number 7.
Clearly, she does not understand the game. Someone is going home today and you're asking for volunteers? Right here, pick me.
At number 6, I have Lauren. And Lauren had yet another disastrous HOH. Yes, you can make the claim that, oh, Lauren got somebody else out on the other side of the house, so it's a success, right? And if you want to take your victories like that, go for it. You know what? I'm not going to shame you for it. But in terms of the people she had on the block and who she could have gotten out, this is a complete failure. Like, getting out Morgan or Keanu or even Ashley on this HOH would have been a huge boost for her resume. But instead, Lauren got Will out. And yes, Will was somebody who obviously wasn't working with Lauren and somebody who was directly going to target Lauren. But the fact that Will is probably like the most likable person in the house and somebody that isn't viewed as a threat, the fact that he goes home in this position on Lauren's HOH makes Lauren's HOH look that much worse. People actively wanted to ruin Lauren's HOH in order to ruin her jury chances. The likes of Keanu and Vince were willing to make this move against Lauren just to make her look bad. And it worked. These people do not respect Lauren whatsoever. Despite Lauren playing far and away the most impressive game out of everybody left in the house, Lauren has zero chance of winning this game. Lauren already has locked jury votes against her in the likes of Rachel and Will, and there are a lot of people in the house who are expressing that they don't want to vote for Lauren to win, like the likes of a Keanu or maybe even an Ashley. So that's 4 votes already locked against her. That loses the game, point blank period, with this 7-person jury. Mathematically, Lauren has lost. And it's just like, Lauren could have had such a big move this week and boosted her resume so much, but instead it just ended in disaster and an absolute horrible HOH. Another one where she sent somebody home that was actually going to be good for her game. Like, it's just another bad HOH, and it puts her in a worse position because now she has less opportunities to win competitions to keep herself safe, and she upset a lot of people this week. Like, if Ashley wins HOH, she's putting up Lauren. If Keanu wins HOH, he's putting up Lauren. Lauren is just in such a bad position now to where if the wrong people win competitions, she's going to be in trouble, and that's a horrible spot for her to be in, which is why I have her here at number 6.
I'm just saying things. Like, yes, I do.
At number 5, I have Kelley. And first and foremost, Kelley at 5 is crazy, right? Even though it is 5 out of 7, the fact that Kelley is even in this position to be at number 5, genuinely insane because Kelley is such a bad player. But all things considered, this was honestly low-key one of Kelley's better weeks. Whenever Kelley's not in the limelight or has to do anything, she really lays back and starts building social capital, which is what I've been saying she needs to do for weeks, and now she's starting to do it. But the fact that Kelley was able to actually do it this week was really impressive, considering that she was able to actually build some really solid bonds with people. She was able to solidify this 3-person alliance between herself, Lauren, and Ava, and that's honestly a pretty decent structure for her. And now people are genuinely starting to perceive Kelley as a jury threat, to where if Kelley makes it to the end of the game, people are genuinely going to vote in favor of her. Like, it's not going to be like a bitter jury vote where they're voting against the other person, but people genuinely want to vote for Kelley, which is horrible considering how bad of a player Kelley is. But the fact that she has this jury equity is really good for her. But the problem is that she has this jury win equity, and now that does put a bit of a target on her back. if somebody on the other side of the house were to win HOH, Kelley is most certainly going up on the block next to somebody like a Lauren or a Keanu. Even though Kelley has severed that tie with Keanu, people still associate the two of them together. So if Keanu wins a competition, which he very likely is going to be able to do, that puts Kelley in a really bad position to where if they can't get out the primary comp threat, they're going to get out the secondary one in Kelley. And so Kelley's now in a position where she also needs to win competitions to stay safe. It's so bad that there's so many competitions that can save these really bad players and that they can just depend on winning these comps to make it to the end. It's dumb, it's bad, it's stupid, it breaks the format, but I can't really hold that against Kelley considering that she's not the one who made the format. She's just the one benefiting from it. But all in all, Kelley's in a pretty weird position, all things considered. She has really close allies and she does have people targeting her, but she is a secondary target. But the fact that she is as big of a target as she is does make me worried, which is why I have her here at number 5.
My strategy all night is to be quiet as a church mouse and hope I don't get picked. Don't press anybody.
At number 4, I have Ava, and Ava is permanently off the clientele list. I strongly dislike Ava as a game player and as a personality on the show. I'm obviously not going to speak about her as a person considering that I don't know Ava. So I don't want to make any comments about her or who she is in the real world. But in the Big Brother house, I genuinely dislike her so much. On the live feeds, she revealed that she was gunning for AFP. And to me, that really recontextualized a lot of her actions within the game, as it really made me question what was genuine and what was playing up to the cameras. Like, was Ava really ever genuinely loyal to Rachel? I don't think so. I think Ava clocked the fact that Rachel was going to be a fan favorite, and Ava latched herself onto Rachel to gain that boost in popularity. But then as soon as Rachel leaves, this really mean-spirited and nastiness just comes out of Ava pretty much out of nowhere. Like, Ava called Rachel the Ceasler. And not in like the complimentary way that some people are doing it in like the modern era, but genuinely in like the derogatory way, which is like, why are you saying that behind her back where she can't defend herself? That's so unnecessary and so disrespectful. And I hate saying this phrase because it's so overused, but Ava's true colors were starting to come out and they were really ugly. And I really hated to see it. But that's about her and like how her presence and how she's acting in the house. And I just really didn't vibe with that. In terms of the game she's playing, it's a pretty mixed bag, all things considered. She does have this 3-person alliance between herself, Lauren, and Kelley, and that's great for her. And she obviously still has her connection with Ashley and somewhat Morgan on the other side of the house, so that does kind of put her in the middle. But it's really bad considering the fact that she lost 2 of her strongest and closest allies in the same week because of her actions in choosing to save Vince for some reason, because she didn't want to make a big move and make big waves at the final 9. Why? Oh my god, it's so bad. I just can't believe this. Ava could have been in such a good position if she would have picked Rachel first, and then they could have put the judges in power, and then they could have maybe sent somebody out like Keanu or Kelley out in the White Locust Twist, and that would have put Ava in an amazing position. But instead, Ava loses her 2 closest allies, and now Ava is in this really weird middling position to where Ava is a bit of a tertiary target. And we've seen with how these comp results are turning out that these tertiary targets do have a very high likelihood of going home. So Ava's now in a pretty dangerous position to where there are a very strong handful amount of people who would put Ava up on the block as a pawn. And that could very easily lead to Ava going out the same way that Will went out, in the sense that she's this likable character who everybody in the house loves, and if they sit next to her in the final 2, they're definitely going to lose. So that definitely creates an incentive for Ava to go home, and it puts her in a really bad position, and she wouldn't be here if she would have picked Rachel first. It's so bad, and Ava's now in a worse position because of it, which is why I have her here at number 4.
Yes! Mastermind, you got nothing on me. I'm not going to jury first.
At number 3, I have Morgan. And Morgan is honestly in a pretty good position. And it's weird considering that there are a decent chunk of people in the game who do want to target Morgan, such as the likes of like a Lauren and a Keanu. But with Lauren's absolutely disastrous HOH, some of that blame has really been shifted off of her. There's not really a spotlight on her as much as there was in prior weeks, where if Keanu, Morgan's main opposition, were to win HOH, I do think Morgan goes up on the block, but I don't think Morgan is the target. I think Keanu at this point would want to target Lauren over Morgan, considering that Keanu now wants to work with the likes of Ashley, and Ashley is very close with Morgan. So that does create a bit of a bridge between Morgan and Keanu. Obviously not the strongest one, considering that Morgan would still be a possible nomination, especially with these 3 nominees still going on. So it's not the best position to be in, but it's better than nothing. And Morgan is now slowly starting to build herself up as a bit of a jury threat. If Morgan were to get to the end of this game against the right people, Morgan can win. She's playing a very cutthroat strategic game, and her social game is pretty decent, all things considered. And I think players in the jury like Rachel and Will really respect the way that Morgan is playing. And so if she can continue playing her cards right, she is going to breeze to that win. The only issue is that Morgan still does have people targeting her, even though she has really solid allies like the likes of Vince and Ashley. Like, those are really close allies who would protect her. There's still so many people who would be willing to put her up on the block. And it's going to be a position to where if Morgan ends up on the block come eviction night, some house guests are going to get itchy with their trigger finger and be like, we have a huge threat on the block in Morgan. When are we ever going to get another opportunity to get Morgan out? Let's just take her out right now when we have the chance. And Morgan has proven that she's not the best under pressure in these blockbusters. So if Morgan does end up on the block, like as a final 2 vote, it's going to be a bit treacherous for her. But I do think Morgan has enough protection around her that should keep her safe and continue moving herself forward in this game, which is why I have her here at number 3.
Girl, what? What do you mean whatever's meant to happen? It's sounding like you're indifferent on whether the veto will be used or not. You're making me feel like I'm your target.
At number 2, I have Ashley. And I am genuinely shocked that I have Ashley at number 2. After Rachel's twist elimination in the White Locust Resort, Ashley was drawing dead in the water. Ashley had essentially given up on the game at that point, asking, what's the point in having a social game if all that matters in the end is competition? And she knows that she's not winning these endgame competitions, especially against the likes of competitors like Lauren and Keanu. So she had essentially given up and was just asking to get voted out so she can go join Rachel in the jury house. But after the veto ceremony, Ashley got a second win and was fighting to stay in this game. And the fact that she was able to flip the vote against Will, of all people, is genuinely insane to me. And it is so impressive. The fact that she was able to get Vince, Morgan, and Keanu to all flip their votes and vote out Will over her is so good for her game, because Ashley is now building these really strong bonds with the likes of Morgan and Vince and is really re-strengthening that alliance, especially now that Will is out of the house. And Ashley has formed this final 2 with Keanu. Now, mind you, I don't think Ashley is going to stay loyal to that final 2 because of how big of a threat, both competitively and jury-wise, that Keanu is. So Ashley definitely isn't going to stay loyal to that. But the fact that Ashley and Keanu have this tight connection now, and Keanu is dumb enough to think that this final 2 is actually real and they would take each other to final 2, it just gains Ashley way more favor, to where if Keanu were to win HOH before this, Ashley would have definitely got up on the block. I mean, Ashley literally did go up on the block, and Ashley yelled at Keanu. But now they've been able to repair their relationship through Ashley's hard work, and now Keanu is a loyal soldier on Ashley's side. And that is so good for her. Now, she obviously does have some troubles. If somebody like a Kelley were to win HOH, I do think Ashley would be in danger, considering that they are definitely not tight at all. And if somebody like a Lauren were to win the future HOH, I could definitely see Ashley being a target there yet again. But Lauren can't win HOH this week, and Kelley seems to be the only one competing in this next HOH competition that would target Ashley. So that puts Ashley in a really good position, and she has such strong ties with everybody left in the house, in the likes of Vince and Morgan and Ava and now Keanu. It puts Ashley in a really strong position. But because of the worries I have about people like Kelley possibly targeting her and how good of a competitor Kelley is and how that could put Ashley at risk, I decided to put Ashley here at number 2.
That trip to the White Locust was the worst trip ever. Can I get a refund? I need to speak to a manager because that hotel was terrible.
At number 1, the house guest I believe to be in the best position in the house as of week 9 is Vince. And this game is just Vince's to lose at this point. Vince is far and away in the best position in the house. Everybody has clocked Vince and his weaselly ways and how much of a snake he is. Everybody knows Vince's tactics and what he tries to do to manipulate people. And people are clocking him every single time, yet people still continue to believe him and trust him. The likes of a Keanu and a Lauren and a Morgan all have been betrayed by Vince on so many different occasions and in huge ways as well. Yet all 3 of them keep coming back to Vince for whatever reason. I don't understand why, but everybody keeps coming back to Vince and everybody wants to work with Vince, and that is putting him in such a solid position. Both sides of the house love Vince and they want to protect him. And at this point, who is really targeting Vince? Like, yes, Kelley is somebody who could put Vince on the block, considering that they have had a lot of beef in the past, and now that Kelley's primary target and Rachel is out of the house, Kelley obviously does have a really clear shot in Vince, to where if Kelley is crazy enough, which she is, she could very easily be like, well, Vince has turned on me so many times, I want Vince to go home. And then boom, she puts up Vince on the block and Vince is sniped out of the game. But honestly, it feels like such a rare scenario, to where even if Vince is put up on the block, I don't think the votes are there to get him out. It would have to be a really, really specific circumstance in order for Vince to actually go home. Like, Vince obviously has like the locked votes of Lauren and Morgan and possibly Keanu at this point. Like, they're all so close and tight with Vince. They obviously want to keep him, and it's just putting him in such a good position to where he can just easily skate by at this point. As long as he doesn't do anything crazy or comp results don't turn out super unlucky for him, Vince has so much runway left in this game that it's essentially his game to lose. If he does lose, it's probably his own fault, considering that Vince is very prone to making mistakes. But at this point in the game, Vince is in a very strong position. And I wouldn't be surprised if he were to win, which is why I have him here at number 1.
A part of me can't even tell if he's 100% serious. I appreciate the offer, and I respect you for trying, but how do I put this? No.
Overall, this week was terrible, and it genuinely ruined the season for me. I'm being so honest. After the White Locust Twist and Rachel was eliminated, I genuinely considered just stopping all of my coverage for the season because I was that upset. This twist fundamentally ruined the foundation of what Big Brother is as a game. Big Brother is a primarily social strategy game with some physical competitive elements injected into it, whereas Big Brother Reindeer Games is a primarily competitive-based game with some social strategy elements injected into it. The reason why the call-out chain worked out so well on Big Brother Reindeer Games is because you wouldn't expect these social strategic elements to affect the competition that much. But it's a competition. So when you take a competition-based twist and put it into a primarily social strategy-based game like Big Brother, the main show, and you base the entire eviction off of that competition, it ruins what Big Brother is. There's no eviction vote to save yourself. You can't use your social game in a traditional sort of way like you typically would, and you're evicted with no votes. It's genuinely insane. Rachel was never nominated, never received an eviction vote, yet is still the first member of the jury. And people are branding it as like the most talked about twist in the world, when it's like, no, people are talking about it because this twist sucks and it ruined the entire season. I thought the Big Brother Zombie Week twist from Big Brother 25 was bad. But what twist is worse than a big twist that creates zero gameplay? A twist that fundamentally ruins the game of Big Brother. People have already made enough think pieces about how bad this twist is and how everything is ruined. And obviously, through my opinions, I'm expressing that same sentiment. So I'm not obviously going to ramble a little bit more on that. But I do want to clarify that obviously I'm upset that Rachel went home through this twist. It sucks. But I would have been upset if anybody went home in this twist, because this twist is just that bad. Nobody deserves to go home in this way. Even somebody like a Kelley, who I didn't necessarily like, even she doesn't deserve to go home in this way. It's just unfair that the likes of a Keanu and Kelley get 3 chances every single week to save themselves, but Rachel only gets 1, and the one time she loses, she's gone. It's just unfair, and it ruins Big Brother, and this isn't the show that I love. But those are just my thoughts. Leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends if you have any of those, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.
Can't believe you're gone. It's supposed to be me again if I don't do